All right, so I'm Clay Butler. I'm co-founder of Future Forward Foods, and we like to make good stuff to eat and drink that's healthy. And this talk is about redefining performance, breaking the sugar energy mindset, which is a real problem, I think, in athletics and just in life in general, where people think if they're not ingesting sugar, they can't possibly perform. Even in an office environment, it's like the snacking is endless. So it's a little bit, I'm going to cover some of the latest findings. They're kind of groundbreaking. It's kind of made us think about how our body actually processes fats and carbohydrates, as well as a little bit of personal story. That's me. I like to surf at night. That was a self-portrait I took, set up my tripod. I paddle out like 4 a.m. and just have all the waves to myself until first light, and then I come in when the crowd comes down. So I've been surfing for 32 years, every day, 2 or 3 hours a day. So I have a baseline of what my performance level is. And I'm 52 now, so I started when I was 20. So keeping your performance up at 52 is not the same as when you're 22. So about 6-7 years ago, I switched to high-fat, low-carb and saw immediate improvements across the board. When I got out from surfing, I didn't have to constantly just eat. I wasn't starving. And I could just surf. I found out I could surf fasted. I get up in the morning, I just go surf for hours. And I've seen no drop in performance. So, and I'll talk about intermittent fasting. So it's a little bit of my personal story. So one thing's happening in athletics that's very different is everyone's starting younger. I see kids serious training when they're 7, 8 years old. And then that continues. And we're seeing burnout already, senior year, college, kids just giving up on sports. They have repetitive motion injuries. They're like aged athletes when they should be in their prime because they've been hustling since they were 7. And of course, consuming lots of sugar and burning the candle at both ends. So, and then we have, freaks of nature like this who just clean up all the medals. But this has always been going on, because I would argue that this guy's a freak of nature because he cleaned up at the Olympics in the 70s. This is Mark Spitz. No goggles, a mustache, which got to add, 0.20% drag, right? Cut his time down. No swim cap, and these crazy over-exaggerated strokes because they didn't have the dolphin kick. They didn't have all this stuff. He did well. I'm sure he wasn't slamming energy bars and worried about his macros, and he just was a good swimmer. So, but I would argue that all of the athletes today pale in comparison to the athletes of the past. These are Neanderthals hunting, no real shoes to speak of, no knee pads, no specialized training. Probably they're in a fasted state because they haven't eaten, and they're taking down giant animals. And they did this just fine. So the question is, how do they do it? They had no sugar, didn't exist. You could kill some bees and take their honey, but that was it. There was no sugar at all. No sports drinks, no pasta, goopy energy bars, nothing. Days without fueling up. They might not eat for days, but they have to perform at their peak because they got to hunt or fight or protect. So extreme physical feats in a fasted state, no branched chain amino acids to pop, no carb loading before a big hunt, and poor gear. They had nothing, whatever they had. Some didn't have shoes, in the snow. So we're capable of a lot more than we think. We look at today's elite athletes and go, wow, they're just something. But the truth is, people have been doing amazing things with no timeouts, no foul shots, no half times to recover. You had to work it. And no one's going to be cheering, "We Will Rock You" to pump you up before the hunt. Yeah, I'm psyched. Put on my tunes. I hunt to this. This is my favorite. This is my jam. If we had Neanderthals now, and they were still hunting the way they were, I have no doubt it would be a sport. They'd be sponsored, and this is the type of ads we would see. Because they would be our champions. They would be the ones blowing our minds. Like, well, how'd they do this? This doesn't even make any sense. It's like, you killed a mammoth and you hadn't eaten for 3 days before? My guys can't make it through a soccer, without eating 90 grams of sugar every 40 minutes to make it to the end. They can't get through a practice without a gel pack. So it made me think, These guys, I don't see any energy drinks. I don't see any of the thing we see. I don't see knee pads. These guys built our railroads. The Chinese built our railroads. These guys dug our coal. These guys went with the North Pole and stuff that we would consider like joke gear, like $20 parkas at Walmart. These guys built our skyscrapers. And people have always been playing sports. This is a football team from 1891. I'm not sure what type of football it is, but you could see athletes have always been athletes. I'm sure Neanderthals probably had a little swag when they were on the kill. This guy's way ahead of his time. This guy should have been born now because he knows. Who does that in 1891? I think he's a time traveler. So, and this guy, Duke, he didn't even consider himself a swimmer. He was a kayaker and a surfer. He brought surfing to the mainland, taught everyone how to surf, started the surf craze in California. Someone says, you're a good swimmer. You should be on the Olympic team. He goes out, he cleans up, just like Mart Spix, just won all the medals, and he didn't consider himself a swimmer. And of course, he didn't carb load. He didn't do all those things, right? So people have been doing this forever. So my question is always like, how did our ancestors perform amazing feats of physical skill, strength, and endurance without the advantages of high-end gear, training facilities, modern training methods, and no gel-packed sports drinks to keep them fueled? So it's a good question, because you would think the way we play sports now, it would be impossible to do even what our great-grandfathers did. You know, working in a coal mine on an empty stomach. How is that possible? Well, here's how it's possible. They were fat adapted. They didn't need carbs to keep going. Your body cannot store a lot of carbohydrates. About 2,000 calories worth, maybe 500 grams of glycogen, about 400 in your muscles, and 100 backup supply in your liver. In extreme carb-only activity, that's not going to last very long. You're going to be bonking at about 90 minutes if you literally had to run pure on carbohydrates. Now, nobody runs on pure carbohydrates. We all run on a mix all the time. However, you can change your metabolism so you go extremely into the carbs. So when we talk about carbs, athletes in their head, they think of this. That's the vision they have of themselves. Yeah, I eat my lentils and my beans and fruit and potatoes and maybe a little bit of pasta. But in reality, this is how athletes are fueling themselves. I'm constantly shocked when I find out pro athletes and they Instagram their meals. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I've talked to enough coaches and trainers who are like, I can't stop them from eating garbage, no matter how much I explain to them the problem. So this is a real problem because, yes, carbohydrates are a good source of instant fuel. But carbohydrates, particularly pure sugar, comes at a metabolic cost. You cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. It's going to cause damage, period, over time. Inflammation is one of them. So this is how I like to explain fats versus carbs. You could heat your house with a log, and it will work great. You get that log going, you go to bed, it's still burning a little bit in the morning. You could also heat your house with kindling. It will also heat your house. However, you will have to shovel kindling in that thing constantly because it will burn really fast and hot, and then it's gone. This is exactly what carbs do in your system versus fat. Yes, you slam a gel pack, and you get that rush, and you're like, yeah. As soon as you burn through that, though, you go back down. Now you need another gel pack. And what it does is it trains you into thinking you need it in the sense that there is no other way. But there is another way. For years, they thought it was impossible to do endurance or any sort of athletics on a kind of ketogenic, low-carb, high-fat diet. And what I mean ketogenic is not literally, you don't have to be in ketosis, but inspired in that area. And the reason was they'd take somebody like this is just a guy I picked that looked symbolic of this type of distance runner, who lived off this. That's what they would have before their big run. They only thought they had to. And then they would put him in a lab and tell him to run for 3 hours and give them this. Great food. However, for a sugar burner, you take away their sugar, they do not have the metabolic pathway set up to suddenly switch to fat. So they would give them a bunch of fat the day before, put them on a treadmill, and they would bonk, and they get cramps. And they go, see, you need sugar. You can't do without sugar. Well, he couldn't because he wasn't metabolically flexible yet. The same thing would happen to a coffee drinker or a smoker, right? If you drank coffee every day and you used it as a stimulant to get you going, I just took it away and then said, okay, run on a treadmill, you're going to do worse. However, if you quit coffee for 6 months, would we notice the difference in drop? No, you wouldn't, because they would be brought back up naturally to the way they were. Smoker, the same thing. Smoking's not good for you. Nicotine's a stimulant, though. You take away that, put a smoker on a treadmill without their fix, they're going to be going through withdrawal, of course. And you would say, oh, people, if you conducted a test and had somebody smoke while they ran, who was a smoker, 5-pack, 3-pack a day, you would get one result. You took away their cigarettes, you would see a drop in performance. And you'd go, oh, people need cigarettes to run fast, because when we took the cigarettes away, he did worse. Well, of course he did worse. He was going through withdrawal. Give him 6 months for his lungs to heal and for the addiction to go away, he'll kill it. That's the way we've been testing carbs, which is crazy. They should have been testing somebody like this, because that guy, you feed him that the day before, he's going to crush it on the treadmill because he's fat adapted. So this was the conventional wisdom for the longest time. How much fat can humans burn? It was considered that right here, around 0.5 grams per minute is the maximum you can consume. If you think that's true, then of course you need a higher carbohydrate consumption. But since they were always testing sugar-burning athletes and then taking away their fats and testing them, they were getting these results. Well, somebody said, let's do a real test. Let's get fat-adapted athletes. These are all triathletes, elite triathletes. And we'll get sugar burner guys. And we're going to test them the day before. We're going to give them the same type of pre, during, and post-workout drink that's consistent with their macros. And we'll see how they go. And this was hardcore. This guy's getting a biopsy. They stabbed flesh out of their thigh before, and then they did it also right after. And they were, of course, tested the whole time. So the results, this study's only a couple years old. It blew everyone's mind. So this is what they did. 6 a.m., all this testing here, 3 hours on a treadmill at 65% oxygen capacity. And here's where here's the metabolic points where they test. Here's how often they took blood. And they took flesh there, and they took flesh there, and they took another one there. Well, this is what they found. That stands for LCD, low carbohydrate diet, high carbohydrate diet. It was thought that you could not burn a significant amount of fat past maybe 50% of your maximum oxygen consumption. That's the point where no matter how hard you breathe, you can't take any more oxygen. That's your maximum. And considered after that in athletics it's all downward, because you just can't keep up with your needs. So if we take a line here and we look, so here's the high carbohydrate. They're oxidizing about 0.5 grams per minute at this rate, right? Now let's go up over here. They're 1.2, over double the amount of fat. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the peak, right? Look at the gap in here. This is at 70% of your oxygen maximum, and they're still burning over a gram, when up until 5 years ago, it was thought impossible for humans to go above about a half per minute. And then here, even if we go here, at about 95, you can't burn any more fat. He's going to be burning glycogen at that point. This person starts burning pure glycogen at this point. However, just kind of even do this line right here, right where they completely drop out on the fat consumption, boom, there's still almost a gram. So what does that tell you? Somebody's conserving their glucose and somebody isn't. Incredibly efficient. Here's another example. Minutes of exercise, 0 to 180 to 3 hours. And this is their consumption of fat versus carbohydrate. And you could see, this is close to 50-50, but this is a crazy, like 10-90. 3 hours on a treadmill, still burning almost all fat. And then here's the peak, right? How much fat does a sugar burner peak out at? There's a few outliers that got close to that, but the clump is right here. That was the peak. And then right here, we're all at, almost all of it, these guys are underperformers, at a gram, almost 2. That's how mind-boggling this study was, because literally everyone was saying this couldn't be done. That was the conventional wisdom up until like 3 years ago. Couldn't be done. So the question is, are you ready to unleash your fat-burning beast? I already have. And the benefits have been, it's been transformative, to say a lot. No more hangry. Does everyone I used to get that, particularly after surfing. If I didn't eat right away, I was a grumpy Gus. Don't talk to me, don't get in my way, I gotta eat. Because I was a sugar burner. I used to eat an energy bar before I went surfing. At one point, I needed it in the sense that I wasn't metabolically flexible. However, when I switched to a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, I was still eating my energy bar, but I was like, I think it's slowing me down. I was almost seeing a performance loss by having an energy bar beforehand. So I ditched it. I went out, surfed for 3 hours, like, wow, I felt better. I didn't feel any drag, and afterwards, I even felt better. I think what I was doing when I was fat adapted, I was then eating something that was pretty high carb, even if it was a Laura bar. It's 4 ingredients, nuts, dates. It still had 26 grams of easily digestible sugar. I think what I was doing is I was taking my wonderful machinery that was fat adapted. My body was saying, yeah, go ahead, go surf. We got the fat, we got this covered. I would then screw it up by, right before I went out, taking 26 grams of sugar, and now my body's like, oh, we're burning sugar now? Okay. And then, now we're going back to fat. It's like, no, I'm just going to let it ride that way. So because I have 30 years experience surfing, I've been for my own self, N equals 1, one of our favorite experiments, us. Because really at the end of the day, it all matters what it works for us. It has freed me. I don't have to take food on a plane. I don't have to eat right away after time. I can exercise fasted. In fact, I do better on a fasted state. And then afterwards, I don't have to refuel. I'm fine. I'm doing great. And the intermittent fasting, which I just started including, I can tell it's increasing my human growth hormone, like they said it will. It's increased my metabolism, like they said it will. It's reduced my inflammation, like they say it will. I'm performing better doing intermittent fasting combined with. So I'm not a pro athlete. But if me, average Joe, who exercises like crazy, because I also supplement with the surfing, does a pro athlete need 400 grams of carbs a day? They should probably find out. They might find for a professional athlete, 200 grams almost gets them towards ketosis. They might be a fat-burning beast at 200 grams of carbohydrates because of their metabolism. A sedentary office worker who does no exercise might have to go down to 50 to be a fat-burning beast. So it's adaptable. What's low carb to you is not necessarily low carb to somebody else, and that's okay. You don't have to follow the videos. You don't have to. Don't count. Go by your own body. If 100 feels great for you, 50, 150, whatever works for you. But I highly encourage everyone to give it a try, and I hope we start transitioning our athletes off the sugar, because yes, it works in the short term. They're getting the performance, but it's hurting their recovery. It's hurting when they're injured. And when they retire, it's really going to hurt them. They're going to be like, whoa, how come I gained 40 pounds and I've only been, I quit the NFL only 2 years ago? Because you've been just eating sugar the whole time and you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. So some of them have to learn later in life. And I hope we can all learn earlier and it's never too late. So I was told last time I should once again say who I am. I'm Clay Butler. I'm the co-founder of Future Forward Foods with Daniel right there. Daniel Berg, that's why they're called Berg Bites, named after him. He started creating when it's a, and oh, our booth's right over there on the other side of the wall. We have a lot of drinks. Do not be shy. Do not ask us, can I try this? Yes, we poured the cups out for a reason. And if you like it, take a bottle or two. It's all good. So yeah, check out our booth. Our drinks are sugar-free, adaptogenic, and we're experimenting with a new formula for our bites. It looks like we're transitioning to 0 added sugar very soon because the new recipe is killing it. Thank you.